Cash-a-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, Daryl W4 and I, the Bad Cop, are back, bringing you the 55th edition of the GeoGearHeads.
We're happy to have you join us again, and next week we're talking with Aztec about Neon Geo, so make sure to get your feedback to us for that show. You can email those to geogearheads@cashamaniacs.com or call them into the voicemail line at 206-350-3647. Those can be questions or comments about Neon Geo, or just about anything else that we've covered or you'd like us to discuss. I messed that one up. The Wooden Radio emailed us on last week's discussion of socks. So, Bad Cap, would you do the honors?
I'd be happy to. Hey, have I told you that the Wooden Radio and I have cashed together when he stopped here in Seattle?
No, you did, actually.
Yeah. So, he's a friend of mine, and I can put a face with the name. So, he wrote, on the subjects of socks, while caching and other outdoor activities in the past, I've used cotton sport socks. Then a few years ago, my son mentioned wool socks, so I tried the REI wool socks. And since then, I almost always wear them. They seem to wear forever. Some of them are not real wool, but the man-made wool from Wigwam. I found that the smart wool are not only warm, but they're cool, too. So even in the summer, my feet are not too hot in them, and I do get my feet do get hot and uncomfortable. Talking of the REI wool socks, on one recent cache hike, I stepped in a bunch of leaves. It was really a layer of leaves covering about 12 inches of water, and my foot was wet, and it didn't feel cold at all. I even wear them when I'm kayaking, along with a pair of Tevas. Tevas are a pair of sandals, so I'm glad I'm not the only one wearing socks and sandals. Thank you, Wooden Radio. So here's the story of wet feet and socks. Donna and I took a class in rescue and recovery a while back. The instructor reminded us, saying dry feet equal wet head. Or if you try to keep your feet dry, you'll probably end up falling in and getting wet all over. So my entry and exit involves stepping in water, sometimes almost knee deep. Much of the time I'm in cool water and I wear the Tevas, and if I forget to leave my socks in the car, I have my REI hiking socks on. And they keep my feet warm while paddling. And on the drive home, even when they're wet. Now, my old cotton sport tube socks, I have one purpose. I put my GoPro camera in one as a soft lens cover.
Well, that's an interesting use for the cotton socks, and one I can relate to. But, yeah, great to hear all of the information about the wool socks and your experience with them, too.
Yeah, now I'm not one to wear wool socks in summer, but I think I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, I wear them year-round now because I found that, especially when I'm hiking, they do breathe so much better than anything else I've found, and they help to keep my feet so much cooler than normal.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm going to wear them with sandals, so I'll just let you know right off the top, I'm not a fashion statement.
Well, no, you fit right in the Pacific Northwest.
I think we do, yeah. Now, this show, we're talking about NFC. NFC stands for Near Field Communication. It's based on radio frequency identification, better known as RFID, and it uses a variety of tags. We mentioned a little in Beta 47 and 48 that store and transmit various amounts of short data. The NFC tech has made it into a number of Android, Blackberries, and Windows phones, not the iPhones. But I hear that's going to change. We'll see. Prompting some geocachers to consider its possibilities in geocaching. So we've asked Bell's Angels, a cache creator of Can You NFC Me? That's GC3QBN7. GC3QBN7. It's sanctioned by Groundspeak as a test cache for NFC. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, especially from the other side of the date line. So I would probably normally ask the silly how's tomorrow look question, but I think we've overdone that.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's very hot here.
Yeah, as I understand, it's really, really nasty down there in Australia, and yeah, I really feel for you guys. It's going to be a bad year all over the place, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm not wearing socks today.
Well, you could try the wool socks. Apparently, they keep you very cool.
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
Well, we wanted to get you on because you do have one of the few NFC approved caches for geocaching.com, and give us some information about how you're actually using that and what your experience has been. But before we get into that, can you kind of describe what that cache is about?
Okay, well, it's a very simple cache. Basically, you read the information from the tag with your phone in one place, and it's just straight coordinates to ground zero of the cache.
So basically just a two-stage multi-cache kind of thing.
Two-stage multi-cache, quite quick if you have the technology.
And if you don't, you've done something that we've kind of talked about on a number of other shows even for like Where I Goes, where if you don't have that technology, you give people a puzzle way to solve the problem.
That's correct. What I did was I made it very easy if you have NFC. But if you don't have NFC, the backup puzzle is quite tricky. And it involves, will I give it away? Will I put a spoiler alert here?
Probably a good idea if you're going to.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert. But you have to find a card that has printed some resistor codes, some electronic part codes. And then you have to decode those to find the coordinates. So if you have an iPhone, for example, you probably have to download an app and then enter the colors of the resistor codes and then solve the puzzle. Mm-hmm. So it would take you 15 minutes or so to solve, or if you've got NFC, it takes you about 5 seconds.
Wow. Now, I know the geocaching calculator for the Android has the resistor codes in it, so you could also use that as well.
You could. Look, there are many ways of solving that one. You could go to an electronics store and get a catalogue. Like, I don't know if Radio Shack, but the Dick Smith store in Australia, in the back of the book is all the resistor codes. Mm-hmm. So I made it so that almost anyone could solve as a backup. And also I wanted to see how many people had the technology and how many people used the backup method. So I asked people to log what method they used.
And now, was this a cache that was in existence before you added the NFC portion to it?
It was in existence for 2 days.
Oh.
Because originally what happened was I tried to publish the cache, and my reviewer said no. Groundspeak do not support NFC. So that's where the idea of the resistance codes came in. I changed it to NFC is coming, resistance is futile. And so the number one way to solve it was the resistor codes. But it had in my description, if you have NFC, wink wink, there's a really quick way of solving this. And in the meantime, I had lodged an appeal with Groundspeak on the basis that I'd found another NFC cache in Germany. And they came back to me and said, that's part of a test. So I emailed back and said, well, can I be part of that test process? And 2 days after publishing my Resistance is Futile cache, they came back and allowed it. So it required me to archive that first one and start again. So, yeah, it was a matter of timing, really. I gave up on the appeal and put out the Resistance is Futile cache. And then, lo and behold, 2 days later, they approved it.
Of course, that's the way it always seems to happen.
Yeah.
So are you saying resistance isn't futile?
Well, resistance isn't futile anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
So it worked out well.
Now, you had mentioned you keep stats on who finds it and which way. What are you finding out here?
Well, what I'm finding out is that, and as time passes, it improves as well. At the moment, it's like 50% have NFC, but to begin with, maybe only 20% had NFC, 80% didn't. So that's quite a lot. 8 out of 10 people were using the backup method. But recently, quite a few have come along with tablets. There's a few Nexus 7 tablets have solved it, a Sony tablet, and a few Samsung phones. So as time progresses, it's getting better.
Yeah, and probably the most popular device in the world now, which is the Samsung Galaxy S3, is one of the big phones that made a big push with NFC. So people are becoming more aware of the technology. Even if they had it in their phone or their tablet earlier, it might not have been supported or advertised that it had it, so that people wouldn't even know that they could turn it on to go and use the NFC for something.
That's true. You may not have heard of NFC until you got a phone that had NFC. And in fact, that's how I heard of it. I got the Galaxy S3 around about August last year. And I said, wow, what's this NFC thing? And then straight away my mind starts ticking over of how I can make a cache using that technology. So that's what happened.
Of course. It's kind of like a chirp beacon kind of thing, just a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, that's true. And that was one of my arguments with my reviewer was, well, why can't I have an NFC cache when there's a chirp cache? There's one near me, but nobody ever finds it. Like one person finds it every 3 months. And normally it's when you buy that specific brand of GPS that you then look around for a chirp cache.
Yeah, well, it's not just that you have to have a Garmin GPS. You have to have a Garmin GPS that has the ANT technology in it so that you can find it. And you get into even as like the eTrex 10 and 20s don't have the ANT, so you can't do the chirps.
Yeah, so you have to spend quite a lot of money to get chirp capacity when, these days most of the phones, will come with NFC. And, all we need is for the iPhone to come with NFC, and it should really take off then.
Well, one of the other really nice things about NFC is that you don't have to worry about a battery in the tag or beacon, if you want to call it a beacon still, because it is powered from the radio in the phone.
That's correct. And look, I'm not an NFC expert, but I believe that this sticker doesn't have any power and that the power comes from the battery of your phone, much like a wireless charging system.
That's exactly the idea. My son has some of the Skylanders, which is a game based on NFC. And if you take one of the characters, put it on the portal, it lights up. There's no batteries in it. It's drawing power from there. So I took that same character, put it on the back of my Nexus 7, and sure enough, it lit up. So it's drawing power from the device. And I think that's really neat, to be honest with you. All an NFC tag is a small chip wrapped around an antenna. And the antenna, and you've got to be very close, so you almost touching before you can transmit data and or power.
Yeah, and look, I'm not sure. It seems to me that if nobody finds Can You NFC Me for a while, and I go and check it, it takes longer to scan. So I don't know whether there's some residual energy there, but maybe not. I could be imagining that. But it seems like if it hasn't been found for a while, it's slower.
Interesting. Yeah. I never considered if there's a capacitive effect there that will hold the energy, hold the electricity a little longer. That could be.
Yeah, because once you scan it, and then take your phone away and scan it again, it's very quick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit that I'm shocked that Groundspeak had an issue with NFC. Because when you think about it, there are more NFC-enabled devices out there than there are Chirp-enabled devices at this point. And the Chirp came along and they snatched it right up. So, but I think this will. I think Groundspeak's going to change their viewpoint on NFC caches here.
Yeah, they very probably will. But I think one of their issues might have been that Chirp is very specific. It can only give you coordinates. NFC is just about anything that you want to encode onto it, so it could take you to a commercial website, or worse yet, to something that's a phishing or malware site.
Well, that's true.
So there are
that is true, and I think that happened.
Oh, I'm sure it has happened to more than a few people, especially in Japan. Bad Cop, you were actually looking up some stats and found a stat that 85% of the Japanese phones have NFC.
Right.
And when you get into that kind of saturation in some of those denser communities, it's probably a really interesting way to exploit some malware. People's tendency to be curious and just tap whatever they see that's NFC.
That's true. There are ways to lock the NFC tag so it cannot be rewritten, but you have to take that step to do it. As it is, it's temporary. I mean, it can be overwritten by the next device that comes up unless you lock it.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the other issues is, if it isn't a locked tag, you conceivably could run into someone overwriting it with some other data. So they can come and spam your tag that would take you to the next stage, conceivably.
Yeah, my tag is locked, so it's not difficult to lock a tag. Just when you write to the tag, you just choose lock, and it's locked. But yeah, I thought about that. I wondered if somebody would try and be smart and overwrite it. And then I found the lock feature.
Right. It's not difficult. It's just an extra step. It's kind of like protecting an SD card. Same idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of curious because NFC does support so many different types of encoding. What did you do? Because I'm assuming you didn't just give them a URL. You probably did something like the geotag or something like that?
Well, actually, I experimented with different things, and there seemed to be a way of putting a map coordinate in, but it didn't seem to work. So it's purely a piece of text. So it's just the text coordinates. So it really only takes up 9 characters or something.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I'm not using a lot.
Yeah, that's very good to know because I have heard from a few different sources that some of the phones that do support NFC don't support the geotag, and it would be great if they did, but because they don't, it means that geocoordinate location information really can't be used in NFC with any kind of reliable means.
Yes. There goes my dog.
Well, in my quick investigation of NFC tags, they seem to come in like 256 bytes, 512 bytes, or a whole kilobyte. So, there's not a lot of information you can put on these to begin with, but, when you consider each character is 1 byte, a 256 byte message really is pretty decent.
That is a good size. In fact, I think my tag is something like 64 bytes. It's very small. What I originally did was I looked on eBay and bought a starter pack, which was a range of tags. I think it was $14, and I got one that's like a credit card where you put all your contact details, and that's got quite a bit of storage. But I think my little sticker is, and that did restrict me to simply the text as well. I experimented with URLs and all these sorts of things, and they didn't fit on the sticker that I chose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. But URLs are kind of long. You might have been able to do something like a short URL though, because that would reduce the number of characters that you'd have to have stored.
That's true.
Well, if someone were to think about trying a cache more like your first one, since NFCs haven't really been approved yet by Groundspeak, do you have any advice that you'd want to share as to how to best create that shortcut NFC tag?
Okay, well, look, it's just an app for your phone. I chose the one, I think it's by NXP Technologies, who are the creator of NFC. And that app will do everything for you, including, all the various types of writing to the sticker. So it'll do all the URLs. But it comes in various formats. When you first get it, it's locked in basic. And you just have to click advanced user in it, and then you open up all these other features, and then there's a next level up from that. So I would just go with the official app from the creator. I tried there's a Samsung app, Tactiles, which comes with Galaxy S3 in some areas. It didn't come on my phone, but you're able to download it. And in fact, the version of Samsung Tactiles in the US has a lot more features than the international version. I don't know why.
Now, are you doing anything else with NFC? Are you using it to program your phone when you say go into the house or put it at your bedstand at night?
I'm not. I looked into a front door lock that Samsung sell. That is an NFC door lock, and it looked really good. It has a keypad, and the price is reasonable. Coming straight from Korea on eBay. I've looked into that. I had a NFC tag next to my bed that you just tap your phone to, and it put it into flight mode for the night. And then you could just tap it again the next morning and wake it all up. But no, that's about all I've done with it. There are a lot of things that people do. There's a very good app on Android called Tasker that will do various tasks, and there's plugins for that for NFC, which would enable you to do almost anything that your phone can do. But no, not really.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Bell's Angels, so much for coming on the show. I know it's an inconvenience for you, not only the heat, but the time, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Hoffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. Copyright 2012. I gotta redo that one. This show is copyright 2013 by Daryl Wanberg, all rights reserved. And one more time. This show is copyright 2013 by Daryl Wanberg, all rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.